welcome to the Green Dream video series. I'm ESG Clarity Deputy Editor Natasha Turner, and today I'm very pleased to be speaking with Jonathan Maxwell, founder and CEO of Sustainable Development Capital, which has launched a number of energy efficient project investment funds and the SDCL Energy Efficiency Income Trust. So to start with, can you give us a brief overview of Sustainable Development Capital? What kind of investments does it make, for example?
So thank you for having me on your interview. Sustainable Development Capital is a specialist investment firm. We invest in energy solutions, that is energy projects that deliver cheaper, cleaner and more reliable, more resilient energy solutions directly to the end users of energy. So 40% of the world's energy is used in buildings, 20% in transport. And we design energy solutions that can reduce cost, reduce carbon, and improve resilience for those end users. Those projects might include projects that make green power for data centers, hospitals, commercial buildings, industrial facilities. And in all of these cases, we're bringing energy production directly to the point of use to avoid the losses traditionally involved in the generation, transmission and distribution of energy. And we're also helping to reduce demand for energy at the end use. So there's a conundrum that we are extremely interested in as a firm, and that is that energy, which is one of the most important sectors for investment, for sustainability investing and ESG investing, energy markets are measured in the trillions of dollars, but most energy is wasted. Maybe half to 2/3 of energy is wasted before it gets to the point of use. And then maybe another 25 to 35% of energy can be lost at the point of use. On the generation side, transmission and distribution accounts for most of the supply side losses. And then, of course, inefficient systems, equipment, lighting, heating, ventilation is responsible for losses on the demand side. And it's that fundamental inefficiency in the system that we find so fascinating and that we invest in. We invest in profitable solutions to that problem, which is that most of the world's energy is wasted.
Great. And how is the portfolio made up in terms of the split between on-site energy generation investments and energy demand reduction measures?
So by value, a very large part of the portfolio at the moment is based on-site energy solutions. So these are projects ranging from generators directly at the point of use so that we can use the heat and as well as the electricity produced by the generators. Lots of projects that involve solar power, in some cases increasingly allied with storage. So a very large proportion of the portfolio is involved with bringing cheaper, cleaner, more reliable energy solutions through on-site energy into buildings. But a very significant part of our background, and indeed part of our current focus, is on helping buildings reduce the amount of energy they need. So that, for example, could be through lighting, heating, ventilation, air conditioning systems within buildings. So a pretty significant part of the portfolio is based on energy demand reduction.
Interesting. So lots of innovations, it sounds like there. Can you talk us through a recent successful investment?
Yeah, I mean, in the past, we transformed the way that energy was supplied in data centers and hospitals, for example. We designed and delivered an on-site energy solution for Citigroup's data center in London in 2015, 2016. We delivered a very similar solution for St. Bart's Hospital, effectively bringing lower carbon, more resilient energy solutions directly onto the estate of the hospital. We've done all sorts of things on the demand side. I mentioned, lighting, so we retrofit pretty much all of the buildings across the UK for Santander Bank, actually, in 2015-16 with LED lights, and that's worked extremely well. Since that time, we've now extended our portfolio to cover pretty much 60,000 properties across the UK, Europe, and North America. We've made some very interesting new investments recently, including one about a year and a half ago, we acquired a portfolio generating clean energy for the steel industry. up in Gary in Indiana. So steel, cement, plastics and chemicals together are responsible for more greenhouse gas than the entire power sector put together. So having on-site generation solutions that can help decarbonize industry like steel is something that we're very excited about. We just completed on a new acquisition in upstate New York, where we acquired a very large district energy system, which provides pretty much all of the utilities, lower carbon utilities, for over 100 businesses. So that kind of district energy or district heating network is something that we're really excited about too.
And how was this sector impacted by the pandemic?
We've been fortunate in that our portfolio is very resilient during the 2020 COVID-19 pandemic. Our project investments relied on assets that continued to be available for use all the way through 2020. Demand had relatively little impact on us, and we're bearing in mind we're providing critical services. We're also servicing critical industries like data centers, hospitals, agricultural facilities, and industrial producers, where the demand for their products and services continued throughout 2020. So I'm pleased to say that the portfolio remained very resilient during 2020.
And I think it's fair to say we're all becoming a bit more aware about the need for an energy transition, but what concerns do you have about this?
I think it's mostly that it doesn't happen quickly enough. Actually, I'm a huge optimist that we have a huge number of technologies and solutions today that are going to contribute towards our goals, whether it's in 2030 or 2040. I think the most important thing is that we get going on implementing those solutions and introducing those technologies today. Some of those solutions may provide incremental benefits in terms of carbon emission reduction. And I'm very keen that we get on with it in deploying the technologies that we know today, albeit, that we keep our minds open and keep flexible so that we can introduce best available technology as it emerges over the next 5, 10, 15 years. We expect to see a tremendous amount of innovation over the course of the next 10 to 20 years. But, we're also value incredibly highly the carbon emission reductions that can be achieved today with existing technology. And, perhaps half of the 2030 carbon emission goals can come from the sorts of things that we're looking at and investing in: energy efficiency and decentralized energy. Maybe 3/4 actually of those carbon emission reduction targets in cities can be delivered through energy efficiency and decentralization. Of course, we're also going to be focused on finding best available technology and supporting new technologies to accelerate the transition. But the critical thing is that we get going now, because the value of those carbon emission reductions today are incredibly valuable.
So, as well as investing in new technology, I guess perhaps that's the big one, but is there another role that investors can play in this?
I think there's a huge demand for capital actually in decarbonising. If you look at the biggest end users of energy, obviously residential. So, I think investors are looking at the residential energy market and trying to figure out how they make that more efficient, whether it's through brilliant new supply models into the retail and residential sector, or helping to decarbonize homes, through insulation and other energy efficiency improvements. That's sort of a big wedge. But the other big wedges are the commercial and industrial sectors that I described earlier. So, data centers, hospitals, industrial facilities, commercial buildings, that's where a vast amount of carbon emission reduction potential resides. And I think it's there that investors in particular, can put real capital to work at scale, in project finance type of arrangements to help accelerate the transition towards a lower carbon energy supply for those companies.
Yes, definitely. Well, thank you. So just finally, to finish off, we always finish this Green Dream video series with a question, which is what is your favorite sustainable drink or snack?
So the boring answer to that question is I drink a lot of water, which I think is very important from a health perspective. The more interesting thing is I've got a real sweet tooth, and I've discovered vegan chickpea brownies, which I very much enjoy with a cup of coffee, sustainably sourced at the right times of day. So that's my answer.
Brilliant. You'll have to send over the recipe. That sounds great. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Jonathan.
It's a great pleasure. Thank you for having me.